So we're at Baltimore 2017 with Matt Kindt, an amazing creator, one of my favorites that are out there, and actually a favorite of the site, quite a few of our contributors. Um, so I want to talk Grass Kings to start off with. First, where did the concept actually come from for the series?
The concept actually came from Tyler. he called me up and he was like, "Hey, I got this idea for like these people that want to kind of live in the middle of nowhere and sort of live by their own rules." But I was like, I don't. He didn't. He wasn't sure how to like put the story together, and it's something he'd been kicking around for like a couple of years, And he asked if I'd be interested. I was like, man, I don't know, because I just felt weird about taking something that was kind of his baby and messing with it. And so I was like, well, I'll try. And then I read his kind of outline, his notes and everything. I was like, oh, I don't know. And it was one of the few times I've had writer's block. And I was like, well, that's so weird, because I never have writer's block. But what I realized was I was scared to mess with his thing, And I was like, you know what? I guess instead of turning in nothing, I'll just have a complete disregard for everything he's done and come up with something that I think would work, or something that I would do, And so I did that, and I rewrote the outline, added like a murder mystery and some other crazy stuff, and tried to incorporate everything he had brought to it also. And then when I was done, I was really nervous. I was like, oh, this is terrible. I ruined the thing that he was his little baby, And I sent it to him. I was like, well, it's worst case, he'll just be like, I hate it. And I sent it to him, and he loved it. He was like, oh, this is perfect, And so it was definitely it's the only time I think I've ever done something like that where work collaborated in a way where it was an idea that someone had, and then I sort of bring something to it, and it's both of us sort of jam together,
That's really cool. With the series, so obviously you touch on it. There's this murder mystery that is part of it, and then there's also this missing child that's part of it, or this child that's kind of gone missing. And then the first arc really sets the ground for that, but has not really to do with those first two things. It's really just kind of setting the tone of it, and is more about these two different communities and how they clash. Which I thought was really interesting, because going into the first issue, I thought it was going to be this murder mystery, and then the first arc is nothing of the sorts. With the story, why did you kind of set the ground in that way? I mean, was that first arc really kind of your way of creating this world and setting things up for what's to come?
Yeah, I think so. To me, it was important to sort of get a sense of who the characters were, and like what world are they living in, why are they doing this, and who are they, and that I really wanted to make it seem real, And then with Tyler's art and the stuff he likes to draw and what he's really good at, it was just fun to sort of like just pan around the landscape and look in on the people and just sort of give him some fun stuff to draw at the same time. But yeah, I at the heart of it's his missing daughter, and then the second arc, there's sort of maybe it's a murder mystery, maybe it's not kind of thing, And I think those are the little threads that I like to have to sort of keep me interested in, like sort of teasing out this sort of darker mystery that might be happening. But yeah, I think it's a fun. It's definitely more of a grounded book than I've done in a while, and so that part is fun too. It's just to come up with characters that seem real, and create people that you kind of really care about.
With Grass Kings, the thing that kind of first jumped out at me is it came out, I think it was like towards the tail end of like the Bundy stuff that was going on, and obviously there's a lot of like real world, we want to live off the grid or under our own rules and all that. Were you inspired at all, when you were writing the series, about what was going on in the real world?
No, no, it's fine if people want to bring something to it from outside, that's fine. But no,
It was just weird timing when it kind of came out.
Yeah, no, I was like, honestly, that was what Tyler brought to it was that he was like, I want to do something about this community that sort of lives off the grid and does their own thing. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. It's not something that I in particularly like I've ever thought about, And it's like I like the idea of whatever, surviving in the wilderness and that kind of thing. But yeah, as far as like any sort of political or real world thing, that if it's in there, you can bring it to it if you want to. But to me, I just wanted to create characters that were kind of real, and and it's interesting when I'm writing it too. I feel like the my urge is to do point of view of the community, the grass kingdom, and have them be like sort of the good guys. But at the same time, I'm like, well, they're not really, you know. And sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. And so it's fun to write it in a way where, yeah, we're seeing it from their point of view, but they're not necessarily like the best people. And I think that's sort of a tricky thing to not to write, but it's a fun thing to sort of do, where you're automatically kind of on their side at first, but then I think as you go along, you might want to start questioning like who are we rooting for here, you know? And
I found that in the first
yeah.
arc where I didn't know quite who was right, who was wrong.
Yeah, and I think those issues are really interesting to me, you know. And I just read this book, the documentary, or a book about the guy that invented the Silk Road, and he was super libertarian, and his ideas about like everybody should just be free to do what they want to do, you know. And what's interesting about that is like the dangers of that, you know, or the repercussions of that freedom, you know, and what the carryover and the ripple effect when you're just doing what you want to do and how that affects other people. I think that's fun stuff to explore.
With the series, I mean, you're obviously not doing the art for Grass Kings, but it still has this vibe of a lot of the series that you work on. You know, Grass Kings still looks a lot like Department H, which, you know, obviously looks like Mind Management and the work. It's interesting. I actually asked this to Jeff Lemire too, where a lot of the works, even if he's not doing the art, still has a very similar art style to it. Is that something? Is it just kind of winds up that you're gravitated towards other artists that have a very similar style to yourself, or is it just, you know, kind of dumb luck?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we end up finding each other, you know, and it's like like Jeff and I are friends because we were at a con like when we were first starting out and walking around, and our work attracted each other because it's like, oh, I like the way this looks. I think whatever that first book he did, what was it called? It was like red, white, and black. It was a 3-color book, and I was like, wow, this is super cool. And I think you just end up finding people like that. And Tyler, I've been a fan of his stuff forever, and I love, you know, traditional watercolor and paint and ink on paper and everything, and you know, not a lot of people do that anymore. And so I've loved his stuff forever, and I talked to him about maybe doing something early before this, you know, and it kind of didn't work out, or the scheduling didn't happen, and so he was always on my radar. I was like, oh, I would love to do something with him, you know, at some time. And then when he brought me this, I'm like, well, this is perfect, you know, and it helps if you love the other guy's stuff, you know, and I think we just end up sort of gravitating towards each other.
With the series, I kind of joked at times that I feel like between you, Jeff Lemire, Brian Michael Bendis, and Charles Soule, is like you're on a race to do the most comics per month out of creators. Yeah. You know, how do you, as a creator, able to balance so much? I mean, it really feels like you've got something coming out every week, and that's not a bad thing because it's all awesome.
Yeah, no, it's I treat it like a job, you know, like it's an awesome job, but I still go in. I have a studio. I go in, drop my daughter off at school, go into work, you know, and it's almost like a 9 to 5, but I don't take a very long lunch break, you know, and I'm working a lot, so. And then you just kind of compartmentalize it. I don't know how the other guys do it, but I will spend a couple days working on one project, and then only that project, you know. And so you're just immersed in that world and working on it, and then you sort of turn that off, and then you go to the next one and work on that, you know. And you sort of just jump from project to project, but I never do it like in one day. I'm never really working on more than one thing, you know. And that way you can kind of keep your head straight.
With so much being worked on, all of it's so different too. Like for a creator, like how satisfying is that for you to, one, kind of keep it all straight, but the other, you know, not burn out on maybe one genre or one type of story?
Yeah, no, I mean it's super fun. Exactly what you said. Like if there's a itch, I get to scratch it. You know, like I don't know if there's a genre I haven't gotten to do that I wanted to do at this point, and so if anything, it's a question of like, oh, what haven't I done? You know, and that's why with I started doing Ether. I was like, well, I haven't done supernatural anything because I never really liked supernatural stuff. I didn't really like reading that horror or anything like that when I was growing up. I was like, well, what would I do if I had to write something like that, you know? And then Ether sort of came out of that idea of, well, what would satisfy me as a reader? with supernatural stuff and magic and all that, you know, what would I read that I would like? And so it ends up being something like that at some point, you know. I guess I'll run out of ideas eventually, and then whatever, I'll just retire.
Please don't. Final question, because I've had you for a good amount of time. You got tons of work to do. You know, you've obviously have done independent stuff yourself. You've worked with tons of different publishers. You've worked, you know, within a publisher on their series. For you as a creator, like, for folks who don't know what the you know, that difference is, you know, what would you say is the biggest difference of like working with Boom instead of maybe Valiant, or you know, an EXO versus Grass Kings?
Yeah, for me, it's important to not have a difference, you know, and I think finding a home at Valiant, which is kind of work for hire, you know, and I don't own the characters or the stories. If I'm not doing that, then I definitely want to have a relationship where I'm able to tell stories I'm proud of and I can have control over, and I'm working with people that I like. Because if I can't do that, then if that part isn't fun, then I don't want to do it, you know, because I can just do, like I do Department H with Dark Horse and Ether and Grass Kings. They're all creator-owned books, and I have total control over all of it. So to not have total control, or to give up some ownership of it, that relationship has to be special, you know, and that's why Valiant's been a great home. They're super great guys, and all my editors there and everybody I work with. You know, it's a small company that loves making comics, wants to put out good books, and that's what's important. You know, like at the end of the day, you know, at the end of my life, you know, my name's going to be on a bunch of books. I want them to be good books. You know.
So, cool. I appreciate you talking to us.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.